everyone, this is Lisa from TRW, and in this video I am going to show you how to cut Siser EasyWeed Adhesive using your Silhouette CAMEO. Now this material is used as the base layer when working with heat transfer foil, and there are things about it that are kind of tricky, so I'm going to go over the cut settings that I use, how to figure out a good test cut with it, and some tips and tricks on how to weed this material. So if you want to know how to use this EasyWeed adhesive, don't forget to keep watching, and while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you turn on that bell button next to the subscribe button so you don't miss a single video. So let's go ahead and get started with our EasyWeed adhesive cut settings. Alright, so I am in Silhouette Studio. So for my cut settings, what I'm going to do is I am literally just going to be cutting this TRW logo. So we have this set right here. Now, as you see in my workspace, you can see that I have a cutting mat set up. Now, one thing about the EasyWeed adhesive is it does have a carrier. It is treated like you treat an HTV or a heat transfer vinyl, so we don't need a cutting mat. So for the purpose of this video, I will not be using a cutting mat. Just remember, you always have the option to use it if you want to. So we have this set right here. So let's go over to our page setup. It's going to be at the top on the right. And right here towards the middle, closer to the bottom, we have cutting mat. Let's change that to none. So you can see in our workspace, it has no cutting mat. And so we can start setting up our design. Now, EasyWeed adhesive, if you look at this, it's got a shiny side and kind of a dull side. Now this is just like heat transfer vinyl with the carrier. It's almost like you have just the adhesive or the glue of the heat transfer vinyl and you're going to put the color on later. Pretty much this is almost like a big piece of glue. So you want to make sure that this carrier faces down on your machine because this is what holds your design together. So because of that, we need to flip our design because this right here, this is the shiny side facing you. This is how you're going to see your design, but we can't cut on this material. We have to cut on this side. So in order to make it work, we're going to cut on this side, but we're going to flip our design. So let's go over, select our design. Let's right click, flip horizontally, and now we have that all set. And I'm going to set it up towards the corner of my workspace. And what I always like to do is I'm going to draw a weed box around it. So I'm going to go over to the left side, use my rectangle tool, and draw a box around my design. Now the reason why I do this is I find it a lot easier to weed my design after the fact because I can kind of find that box, pull it from the corner, and I have a good idea of where my design starts and stops. So we have this all set to go, so we're going to go over to our send panel and test our cut settings and get going with our cutting. So let's go over and I'm going to go to my send panel, and like I've been saying in our previous videos on cutting our materials, I am going to be using all custom cut settings. Now I encourage you to use your custom cut settings. It's a great feature in Silhouette Studio. I'm going to link it below and I'm going to put it in the little dot in the corner for you to learn how to create your own custom cut settings. So let's go right here. I'm going to turn on my material and I'm going to go all the way down, and you're going to see that I have set in here, I have EasyWeed. Now, if you're used to cutting Siser EasyWeed, I use the same settings for EasyWeed as I do for adhesive. So let's go over, and I want to point out one thing before I get to the settings. If you notice, my TRW has a thick red box around it, but my TRW itself does not have that line. Now that is because that came in as an SVG file into my software. So whenever that happens in Silhouette Studio, a lot of times your cut lines just aren't turned on. If I select both of these and click right here, you can see it says cut. There's my line. So you just want to make sure your cut lines are turned on for something like this. So with my EasyWeed settings, we have it set for my blade at 3, my speed at 10, my force at 5, and I have 1 pass. Now don't forget, you can always check our cutting specs on our website. You can see that we have our EasyWeed here. So we have blade depth 3, speed 10, force 5, and 1 pass. Now, one thing that I want to always emphasize to you guys is that every machine can be a little bit different. Your blade can be a little bit more dull. It could be brand new. There's a lot of different factors that go into cutting. So always make sure you do a test cut, all right? These settings are not set in stone. You need to make sure you're testing to make sure it's the right cut settings for what you're working with. So you can see we have these all set over here, and then right here we have our test button down here. So I'm going to jump over to the other camera, show you how to load in this material, and then we're going to go through and figure out our test cut and figure out, hey, what's a good way of cutting this material. So here is my Cameo. You'll see that I have my rollers set, and you can see right here I have this set to about 12 inches wide. Now if you're cutting on a cutting mat, you can bring this over here. Now if you want to adjust your roller, don't forget you can just bring this lever down. This has a lock and unlock, and you can slide your roller over whichever way you would like. So now we're going to line up our Easyweed adhesive material. So we're going to line it up against this line here, and then we're going to put it against this roller. Now you can see I'm going to set this over. The material is just slightly smaller than 12 inches. So that does pose a little bit of an issue with cutting. Not a big deal. If you feel uncomfortable about it, you can use a cutting mat. But the edge of my material is right here, and the other edge is right on the small part of our roller here. So some people don't like that. Don't forget you can always use a cutting mat. It's not an issue at all. So we're going to hold it against the roller, load, and we have that set in there. And just as a review, you can see this is a dull side. If I flip this over, this is the shiny side. This is my carrier that holds it together. So we're going to go over, let's jump over to my screen, and you'll see I'm set with my Cameo 3, and so we have our settings 3, 10, 5, 1, and let's go ahead and do a test cut. So again, that test cut was a lot faster than ones if you may have seen my magic flock video, because this had one pass instead of two. Now let's unload it. And so we're going to look very closely. So the tricky part with your Easyweed adhesive is that it's like a clear, kind of opaque color. So you will have to look closely. You might not be able to see it in the camera. One tip when working with this is you want to work on top of a dark material. So let me see if I can kind of show up on there. So you can kind of see a little bit of it right there. But you're really going to see it once I go to weed out my test cut. So ideally you want to work on a hard surface. I'm going to hold it up so you can see as I do this. So I'm going to find my corner, peel up. You'll see more once this comes up how this material works. So check that out. So now we have our test cut. Just like in our other test cut videos, you want to make sure that the triangle stays behind easily and you get that square up with no resistance. So if you see corners kind of coming up or anything like that, then you want to tweak your settings. So my test cut's pretty good. Let's go ahead and reload this into my machine. And just like in previous videos, my test cut is set up in this corner. So I'm going to hit my little arrows right here. You're going to see a move setting show up. Let's just move it over just a tiny bit. And now we're going to go back to our software. We have our settings set over here, and we're just going to send our design. All right, so our material is done cutting. We're just finishing on this working, and now let's unload it. So now you can see our material is in here. Now the cut lines are going to be a little bit difficult to see. Now this will probably be your most challenging material to weed, I won't even lie, but a couple things you can do. So if you put it down on a dark surface, the cut lines are a little bit easier to see. Let me kind of grab my mouse pad and see if I can show you there. So now you can see we have some cut lines showing up on there, so you want to put it on top of a dark surface. And of course, if you happen to have a bright light to shine on there, that's going to give you your best results as well. Me personally, I know it sounds silly, I actually really like using a headlamp when I weed this material because it's super simple. Now, one thing to note when you are working with your adhesive is that when you weed up your material, it's really light and it's, as you can see, clear. So when you are doing this, you want to make sure the sections that you are weeding up, you want to really set it to the side somewhere else. Because of how clear the material is, when you go to tack it onto your shirt, sometimes it can tack onto your shirt and you don't know it. So that becomes an issue because you won't see it until your foil sticks to it. So once you're done and you're weeding this up, you just want to make sure that the weeded sections that you've pulled up are set aside and they don't somehow stick back onto this carrier. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to weed this up. You will probably have better success weeding than I am right now, just because you'll be weeding on a flat surface as opposed to like somewhat holding it up. All right, so you have this one little section here. So there we go. So I have my design all weeded out. This is a TRW circle. Now, if you continue to watch our videos on our different cut settings, you'll notice that this will be the same design we do for all of them, just so you can get a good idea of how it looks. So you can see we have our nice clear background and our TRW, and it's got that foggy look right there. So if you want to see more videos with the adhesive and foil, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. If this video helped you learn how to cut Easyweed adhesive, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And if you want to see any more of these videos, don't forget, just go ahead and subscribe and we'll have lots more videos for you.